I have two more honorees to seize this moment of the program. I have a Bob and Bob warm-up story. Back in '97, Bob and Bob planned a golf trip by visiting Don Weiss at his home in Florida. Don picks up the story from here. So, spring comes, and the trip of the two Bobs begins in Philly, with them planning on meeting at the office and then driving to the airport. Halfway there, Bob Martone asked Bob Skank, "You haven't forgotten anything, have you? Got your ticket and everything, right?" Bob says, "Yep." As it turned out, that wasn't the case. As they're pulling into the airport, it seems our guy Bobby discovers that he had indeed left his plane tickets on the desk back at the office. This is Don Weiss's quote. Surprise! So Bob Martone swings through the airport and rockets back to the office at breakneck speed. After running in and picking up his tickets, lying on the desk where he had left them, frickin' frack bolt back to the Philly airport, hoping not to miss their flight. Somehow, they make the flight and arrive in Tampa, looking forward to playing a little spring golf and visiting their old pal Don. You see, the plan was, since the trunk of my car stays packed with books and other FAD paraphernalia year-round until the summer break, they were going to simply rent a car when they arrive and drive to my place, saving time. It's at this point where the weekend begins to go downhill. As I was waiting around for the boys to arrive, the phone rings. It's the world-famous editor, Bob Martone. "Don, I've got some good news and bad news. The good news is we're here. The bad news is you have to come pick us up. It seems both of our driver's licenses have expired." And then roll around as a couple. So, bad back and all, I unload the trunk to make room for all their stuff and make a 50-minute trip over to the Tampa airport. Of course, I bitched and moaned to them all the way back to Lakeland about how they both could have unbelievably allowed their driver's licenses to expire. Yep, Bob and Bobby, two peas in a pod. Having changed our tea times, we're still running late. We headed directly to the golf course. With the first part of their trip painfully over, off we go to play golf. Bob and Bob in one cart, I in another. The weather was perfect, and through 8 holes, we were having a great time. As I stepped up to the night tee box, I was 2 under and feeling pretty good about my round so far. I then promptly nailed my tee shot right down the middle, where I'd been all day. Bob and Bob also hit good drives as well, and we were all in the fairway, sitting pretty for our next shots into the green. I drove ahead to check my ball for the distance to the pin, and knowing Bob Skank was behind me, I headed back to park and sit off to the right side to watch his second shot, surely thinking I was safe. Well, the golf cart facing Bob, I sat there with my right arm casually resting on the back of the passenger seat and my left hand on the steering wheel. As Bob was lining up for his shot, I thought to myself, I'm safe here, right? Then again, this was Bob Skank, and anything is possible with a golf cart in his hands. Whoops, too late. Bob's second shot suddenly turned into Skank's greatest shank. As I watched in horror, Bob's shank was now rocketing toward me at light speed. I did the only thing I could do to save myself. Since I was already leaning to the right of the cart, I made the decision to hurl myself out the right side. How my knees didn't hit the steering wheel on the way out, I'll never know. With my feet never touching the floorboard of the cart, I flung myself into a drop and roll position and hoped for the best. The best did not happen. I landed on my left shoulder, hitting the turf with a resounding crunch. As I completed my dive, rolling over onto my back, now staring up at the sky, I realized it wasn't Bob and Bob who had come to visit. It was actually Freddy Krueger and Jason. And they were trying to kill me. The two Bobs now rushed over in their cart frantically, jumping out to see how I was. As Bob Skank, Freddy Krueger, kept apologizing over and over, Bob Martone blurted out, "That's the most incredible thing I've ever seen." I can't believe you were able to get out of the way so fast. It's a good thing, too, because there's a big ball mark, dimples and all, on the seat right behind where your chest would have been. Way to go, Bob. You almost killed Doc. And the thing, I took a rare day off for this kind of abuse. Needless to say, the Bob and Bob Show never asked to come back after that. Well, that's 50 years of celebration down and 39 years to go. Bob Martone is retiring. I repeat, Bob Martone is retiring. I had to say it again because I'm still not sure it's really happening. We've known each other since we were 7, when we both moved into a brand new neighborhood in Rose Valley. When Bob became the first one on our street to take the governor off his mini bike, I wasn't surprised. When everybody had BB guns and Bob had to trump the block with a CO2 cartridge pellet gun, I wasn't surprised. When Bob had his 396 Chevelle yanked by his father and then sold for making a beer run into Chester, not only wasn't I surprised, I was riding shotgun. But Bob is the 6th person to retire in the last 16 months, and the first one I never saw coming. Bob got married shortly after we hired him to rep the Michigan territory from Ann Arbor in 1975. As the best man at the wedding, I toasted Bob at his reception by saying, "I hope you make as good a husband as you did a bachelor." What I could have said was, "You'll probably make a better acquisition editor than either of those," but I wasn't that clairvoyant. While Bob was in Michigan, we stayed in constant contact. As dedicated as Bob was to his job, he was able to squeeze in just enough leisure time to discover some new flavors in beer, especially from Canada. One crisp fall day back in 1976, I walked out to get my mail. I was renting a house with a big mailbox, which came in handy for company correspondence. And as it turned out, an occasional package from Bob. I opened the mailbox. The first thing that hit me was the smell of beer. Inside the mailbox, there was a parcel wrapped in brown paper that was blotched with stains. As I carried it into the house, I could hear the glass shake with every step. I opened the box. At one time, the contents had been a 6-pack. Now, only one tenacious bottle stood above the scrap heap of brown, heavily scented glass. I cleaned off the survivor, stuck it in the fridge, and called Bob. "Bob, I got your package." "Hey, isn't that what that's great?" "Bob, you sent bottles through the mail." There's a long pause. "Well, the bats doesn't come in cans." I took the national sales manager position in 1977, Bob moved back to cover the Philadelphia territory. But in 1978, F.A. Davis took a bold step by starting an allied health division, and Bob became our guy. In the first 5 years, he signed Barb Gillis, Denise Harmony, Pam Levangie, Cynthia Norkin, Susan O'Sullivan, Carolyn Kisner, and Sue Michaelowitz. With the allied health list booming and Bob hitting his stride, it was 1983. And F.A. Davis was going through turmoil on the nursing side. So I asked Bob if he would switch. After much contemplation, he made the courageous decision to forego the famous toga parties at the APTA meeting, which he insisted were well populated with author talent. And tackle nursing. Bob didn't sign Marilyn Benji's and Mary Morehouse, but he turned Colorado Springs into a content power plant that allowed us to ride the crest of the nursing diagnosis movement. He made house husbands out of Dean Benji's and Jan Morehouse. As this list put F.A. Davis securely on the nursing map. By 1987, Bob published the Med Deck, and in 1988, the first edition of the Drug Guide was published. At last count, nearly 3 million drug guides have been sold. Bob published RN Notes in September of 2002. Our first print was 10,000. By the end of 2003, we had sold over 140,000 units. Twelve years later, we have over 40 notes titles in nursing and HP. Last year, the psych list did just about 1.6 million. This year's psych is up 43%. And Bob and Darlene dutifully integrate with DSM-5 content for our many psych titles. In 2014, psych nursing should exceed 2.3 million to become the third highest nursing subject after fundamentals and pharmacology. If you look at our overall top 30 titles in units today, Bob has signed about half of them. In terms of generating revenue for F.A. Davis, he is an acquisitions editor without peer, perhaps the best in our 135-year history. So, why is he retiring? He's still a young man. He's even 3 months younger than I am. After much consultation among many friends in the house, I've developed a very scientific theory. The vending machines at F.A. Davis have driven him away. Bob's discriminating palate is way too sophisticated for our lowly offerings, and he needs to move on. Where's the evidence, you might ask? I will attempt to build my case. From Echo. On a beautiful end of summer day, one year, Bob came over to my cubicle, and without saying hi or making his presence known otherwise, he says, "Man, I could really go for a hot dog, couldn't you? Can't you just smell the onions? It's too bad we aren't on the boardwalk eating those hot dogs today." And I said, I wasn't thinking of hot dogs, but now I think I'm dying for one. And he replies, "Now I've made us both hungry." And walks away. About 15 minutes later, I come back to my desk to find a hot dog with relish and onions on my desk. Bob peeks his head around the corner and says, "Nothing beats the boardwalk, but at least you won't be hungry." From Tom Chivarella. I've been with Davis only a few months, and it's my first conference with Bob. Kathy Colgrove and Ray Huddle are here from Texas, and we're going to talk about what will become Med-Surg's success. But that's tomorrow. Tonight is the opening reception, a cocktail hour, and a stream of nurse educators moving through the booth. I'm ready in the booth in the traffic. It's a few minutes before the doors open. Bob stops me and lowers his voice. He says, "Hey, Tom, you gotta see this." He nods his head toward the end of the aisle, where our competitors are all set up. I wonder what he spotted. We walk hurriedly toward the Elsevier table. And just as hurriedly, we walk right on by. We blow by the Lippincott table, too. We turn the corner to where the event staff is setting up. He points to a table a few feet away. And like a kid who comes downstairs to find a bike under the Christmas tree, he said, "Would you look at that ham?" From Jacqueline. Bob's love of food always keeps me entertained. Steamers, gazpacho, oysters, snapper soup from the Oyster House, of course, corned beef hash, wonton soup, even peanut butter crackers. Bring any of these up to Bob, and you'll watch his face and tone change to pure happiness. If ever you walk past Bob's office and you hear him talking very low, he's most likely talking to someone about cheesesteaks from D'Alessandro's. Never have I met anyone who loves food so much. When Bob took on the daunting task of picking up crabs for the summer solstice, he just didn't go to get crabs. He went to get the best crabs money can buy. Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no river wide enough, so he went to Chestertown, Maryland, which is 70 miles away. And he brought back enough hard shells for Davis, Elsevier, and Clover. I must have forgotten to tell him that Elsevier and Clover were not invited. Realized the training value of his mission. He brought along Jacqueline and Christina, strictly for instructional purposes. The art of taste testing should be shared, and who better to teach it? Class began on a dock above the Chester River and ended when the crab meat was cleaned and from the last shell, and the margaritas, or margins, had surrendered their last drop. Oh, the sacrifices that Bob has made for us. So what in the world is Bob going to do now? Is he going to play golf on real grass? Is he going to take the next plane to Scotland to dote on his grandsons? Or is he going to do what Christina suggests and become a Philadelphia guide on a double-decker tour bus, giving visitors the real truth about where to get the best hot dog, Jimmy Fry, hamburger, or margie? Whatever he does, he's leaving an amazing legacy of great books and lasting fellowship. To commemorate his career at F.A. Davis, I have a special gift for Bob. 40 years ago, this past spring, Bob's dad invited both of us to the Masters, where he had held court for the DuPont Company back in the days of Bob Colby and Charles Cootie. Today, I would like to do to Bob the same thing that Augusta National does to their champion players. Bob, allow me to fit you into the first F.A. Davis green jacket, complete with logo buttons. Thank you, Bob, for everything. can't wait to see what Bob serves at the Champions Dinner. And a big thanks to Kate for the invitations and the music, Carolyn for helping out with the posters and gifts, and thanks to Darlene for all the arrangements, and to George for the videos to come, and to all of you that help make our honorees feel the love. If you haven't already gotten your parking ticket stamped, and to everyone, enjoy your holidays. And if you want to see Bob Skank go through our lost and found, this would be a good time to do that.